Over the weekend, storms battered the southeast of the United States. 11 fatalities were reported in Kentucky alone. There was widespread flooding, heavy rain, and the threat of tornadoes, which affected West Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and North Carolina, resulting in multiple fatalities and states declaring states of emergency across the region. Watch this.
Tonight, historic and deadly flash floods slamming the South.
We have lots of roads that are closed due to flooding.
At least 8 dead in Kentucky, fears that number could go up. More than 1,000 rescues, crews racing to save people stranded in rising waters. You can see the scope of the damage in communities across the state. Entire neighborhoods wiped out and underwater. The governor today declaring a disaster emergency.
This is one of the most serious weather events we've dealt with in at least a decade.
Power out to hundreds of thousands across the region. The devastation hitting Tennessee, a catastrophic situation unfolding in the northwest part of the state after floodwaters overwhelmed the levee pouring into this community. Rescue crews rushing resources to the area. And it wasn't just the floods, 4 confirmed tornadoes across the South, too.
Donald, of course, was far too busy to attend to the emergency because he had an urgent appointment in Florida at NASCAR's Daytona 500. Take a look.
Well, I'm joined now by the President of the United States. Mr. President, 5 years ago, we were standing in this very spot. What brings you back to the Great American Race?
Well, I think it's fantastic. It's great for the country. Our country is doing well again, and we have spirit all over the world, this spirit again. We brought it back, and it's been less than 4 weeks. So you'll see what we do in a little period of time. It's going to only get better, but this is very exciting.
Oh, man, we do not want to see that. We do not want to see that. So that grotesque hulk of a man wasted millions of dollars in United States taxpayer dollars in order to, I don't know, have fun at a NASCAR race. Does not seem like the best use of his time or our money, but what do I know? Of course, the next day, like he started to take the crisis unfolding in the Southeast seriously, right? He visited the flood zone, right? Let's take a look. Oops. Yeah, that was another brilliant use of taxpayer dollars. Donald took his vast motorcade to go play golf in West Palm Beach. What is the moral to this story, you ask? Well, Donald doesn't care. Is this new information? No. But why is it perhaps to some of us seeming more obvious? Because he doesn't have to pretend anymore. In 2020, he had to pretend at least sometimes. I mean, he sucks at it, don't get me wrong, but he had to pretend. He had to play inside of some of the lines because he wanted to get reelected. Now, he doesn't have to worry about that at all. So he's going to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, no matter how bad it looks to those of us who are sane and empathetic. Because he definitely doesn't care about us. Before we dive in, please take a second to like and share this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. After you subscribe, click on the bell because that way you will be alerted every time a new video drops. In the case of natural disasters, like what is happening right now in the Southeast, the country usually looks to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to come into the disaster zone immediately following catastrophic events like hurricanes and flooding and wildfires in order to aid victims and to help with the recovery effort. Let's listen to what Democratic Governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, had to say about his assessment of FEMA under control of the Trump regime after the floods that occurred in his state over the weekend.
Yeah, I've been outspoken on the need for FEMA. We've been through the worst tornadoes in our lifetime in 2021 that killed 81 Kentuckians. We've been through the worst flooding of our lifetime, worse than what you're seeing right now in 2022. We have suffered loss and we have suffered damage at a scale that I'm not sure a single generation of Kentuckians have ever seen. And FEMA's been there. Does FEMA need to be fixed in many ways? Yes. But their emergency response, how they surge resources in the search and rescue phase is critically important.
Yes, it is critically important. And the horrific flooding that occurred in 2022 that the governor is referring to was one such time that the federal government really needed to step in. Governor Bashir assessed the situation and requested what he believed were the funds needed adequately to help the victims and aid in recovery. And the Trump administration gave him something like 1% of the funds he requested. So let's look forward to more of that. Now, let's compare Governor Bashir's remarks about FEMA to what Donald said about had to say about the agency when he visited North Carolina for the first time after the inauguration to comment on FEMA's response after Hurricane Helene, which hit the Southeast very hard in September 2024. Watch this.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area. And they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. First of all, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. You never do. And somehow, miraculously, FEMA, which according to you sucks so badly, it needs to be disappeared, worked brilliantly and miraculously during your first 4 years in office. Also, how much is Melania getting paid? They really must have upped that prenup. Sorry, postnup. Jesus Christ. Anyway, does anybody feel safe flying planes anymore in the United States of America? Well, I don't know if you remember this, but back in the year 2000, one of the fears, well, actually, it was in 1999, in advance of becoming the year 2000, one of the fears was something called Y2K, which stood for year 2000. And the fear was that because of the date change, all 4 digits changing from 1999 to 2000, that there would be computer glitches when that change occurred. And potentially, the air traffic control system, along with other computer systems, would go offline and airplanes would literally start to fall out of the sky. And that explanation is for you younger millennials and the Gen Z among us. That did not happen, obviously, otherwise you would have known about it. Check this out, though. Since Donald took office this year, that fear about planes falling out of the sky is actually justified. Just in the past 3 weeks, there have been 5 plane crashes. First, on January 29th, an American Airlines regional jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter collided near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. 67 people were killed. It was a massive, horrific tragedy. On January 31st, a small medical jet crashed into a Philadelphia neighborhood. 7 people died, including all 6 on board the plane and a person in a car on the ground. On February 6th, a small plane carrying 10 crashed in Alaska after losing speed and altitude and vanishing from the radar. No one survived. And on February 10th, 2 private jets collided at Scottsdale Airport in Arizona, killing one person and injuring four. And of course, Monday, a Delta Airlines jet, which had taken off from Minneapolis St. Paul, flipped upside down while trying to land at Pearson International Airport in Toronto. Amazingly, there were no fatalities this time, but obviously there is something going on here, and we need to take a look at just what it is. This is Donald's response, if we dare.
The Trump administration is also working to downsize the FAA. The union representing the workers said hundreds of probationary employees who maintain critical services with air traffic control are being let go. Many of the workers install, inspect, and maintain air traffic control communications, radio, and computer systems. The move comes less than 3 weeks after a mid-air collision near the Capitol killed 67 people, highlighting problems already within the agency's infrastructure.
That's right. Despite 4 fatal crashes in the United States since the inauguration, which is 30 days ago, Donald's team, such as it is, has started laying off hundreds of Federal Aviation Administration employees, including those responsible for maintaining essential air traffic control infrastructure. The Professional Aviation Safety Specialists Union reported that several hundred workers were given termination notices this Friday. Okay, that is unsustainable. All of this is untenable. Nobody flying right now. Look, I don't feel safe flying. And for those among us who feel like they're immune to it because they have fancy private jets, you're not safe either. We have air traffic controllers doing the job of 2 people. You may not know this. That is very possibly the most stressful job ever invented. That is not a job, as fellow Nerd Avenger Danielle Moody said today, that you want people multitasking. You want them laser focused on their one job, and you do not want them having to take a nanosecond to do somebody else's. Why is this happening? Well, one reason is because we are the people in charge, I guess, only care about their own greed. And again, do you sense a running theme? Donald doesn't care. Doesn't care. Moving on to fire season, which is over for now, but it's going to be back. And not only will it be back, but it's going to become more severe and last longer as climate change intensifies. Here's a look at the devastating fires that just occurred in January out in California.
Devastation comes to California.
All right, dude. Yeah, let's get out of here.
Residents flee for their lives.
There's nothing we can do now, bro.
We had everything, like the sentimental things, like my mom passed away. I had only a few things of hers left.
All the stuff that's here is replaceable. People are not, so having the family is the most important thing.
Homes are destroyed on an unprecedented scale.
People would normally be driving up and down here with surfboards on top of their cars, ready to enjoy a day at the beach. But right now, it just looks like some sort of apocalypse.
Since that unimaginable horror, Donald and Elon Musk have been gutting the federal government, leaving the country's firefighting force ill-prepared for the upcoming wildfire season. There's a freeze on funds, including congressionally allocated money, which is illegal and unconstitutional. There's the elimination of federal employees, which has caused disarray within agencies tasked with combating these wildfires, which we know are inevitable. The result has been limitations in training, the postponement of vegetation reduction work, and of course, a loss of firefighter. One firefighter told ProPublica, quote, "Uncertainty is at an all-time high. Morale is at an all-time low," which basically sounds like life with Donald in it. Anyway, there's more. There are increasing concerns among doctors and scientists around the country right now regarding multiple measles outbreaks and the alarming spread of bird flu. Watch this.
At least 24 cases of measles have been reported in a West Texas county. Gaines County has one of the highest rates of vaccine exemptions in the entire state. And all of the confirmed measles cases there involved unvaccinated residents. Like, I know in real numbers, it's not a lot of people, but it is still troubling.
Yes, it is troubling because this is completely preventable. What we're seeing is one of the places in Texas that has the lowest vaccination rates, the highest school exemption rates from measles vaccination, having a measles outbreak, including hospitalizations of individuals who've been infected with measles. And I think this is really a reminder that measles is still a risk, and it is kind of the canary in the coal mine. It's the most contagious infectious disease known to humans. And when we start to see measles outbreak, that's a sign that there is a chink in the armor of vaccination. And the fact that it's preventable, I think, is what people should understand. This doesn't have to happen if we can get vaccination rates back to high levels again.
Yes, this does not have to happen. There's a vaccine for this. It is inexcusable. Get vaccinated, get your children vaccinated. And of course, though, there's much more to worry about. And this one, there is no vaccine for it. Watch.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has issued conditional approval for a bird flu vaccine for use in chickens. The vaccine from manufacturer Zoetis is one of multiple targeting bird flu in poultry. According to the USDA, avian flu has been confirmed in 146 flocks in the past month, affecting more than 20 million birds. 34 million egg-laying hens have been culled since December. Not all those birds necessarily tested positive for avian flu, but were members of a flock where a case was confirmed. Among humans, there have been at least 68 confirmed cases of bird flu last year, according to the CDC. One person has died from the disease. Over the weekend, Ohio's health department reported the fourth case of a person being hospitalized for bird flu.
In several areas throughout the country, there's a sharp spike in cases of the flu, COVID-19, RSV, and the norovirus. Hence, we're hearing the term quademic, a quademic of viral infections. While these diseases aren't peaking simultaneously, Dr. Abhignana Amenka, Director of Equitable Population Health for Humana Indiana Pathways, noted that the spikes of these viruses are occurring in close proximity to each other, which is a bad sign. Donald's response? Well, he hired, or I should say, he nominated Robert Kennedy, a virulent and long-standing anti-vaccine sociopath, to lead the nation's health institutions. And of course, Senate Republicans confirmed him. Watch this.
And we need a man on a white horse now. We need somebody who is willing to come in and has the spine and the guts and the strength to challenge orthodoxies, to stand in the way of vested interests, and to break institutions that have turned against our democracy. President Trump has shown again and again that he is that hero.
A hero, you say. Imagine Donald on a horse. I mean, granted, that is not the most important thing about that clip, which is grotesque beyond description. I have a question. How is it that there are so many small, vicious men who gain access to such power? How is it that these men are so comfortable selling what little might be left of their souls, crawling over glass to pay obeisance to the worst fucking human being who ever existed? How is that exactly? And how is it that they care not at all about their fellow human beings? Like, what exactly is that agenda? Donald, of course, has also launched a cost-cutting initiative that could fundamentally alter the infrastructure driving United States medical innovation, which has long been admired worldwide, but I fear not for long. The Trump regime has frozen federal grants, imposed widespread layoffs across government agencies, reduced funding for biomedical research, and issued executive orders that could shut down programs focused on gender and diversity. Well, that's a shocker. Watch this.
We're learning more about what agencies have been affected by the Trump administration's continued mass layoffs across the Health and Human Services Department. That is, of course, just one, but several sources tell Politico the cuts have hit staffers at the Food and Drug Administration, as well as the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the National Institutes of Health. The firings were part of cuts affecting about 3,600 probationary employees across the department.
Okay, so again, the theme here, Donald doesn't care about you. Now, there are tens of millions of people who are okay with his cruelty because they think he only doesn't care about people like me. He only doesn't care about Democrats and progressives and liberals and people who believe in democracy, people who believe in human goodness, people who believe in lifting everybody up, people who believe that even those who hate us should have universal health care and universal childcare. They think Donald only hates us. Guess what, guys? He hates you too. He hates you just as much, if not more. And you know why? Because the idea that you worship him makes him despise you. So, I am very sorry to tell you this, but this is going to land at your front door as well. You, again, I am so sorry to tell you this, are going to reap the whirlwind just like the rest of us. The only difference is you're the ones who made it happen. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.